Okay, so we're starting with recording, and what we want you to do is to give us, God, oh my God, what happened?
What's happening?
I don't know, my screen went completely black. So is everybody still there?
Uh-oh, we blacked out.
Are you blacked out too?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
We're still here.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're here also.
I'm twisting the lock right now, so.
I don't know why everything is black. Daughter's computer, but you there. So
I'm
still
here.
hear me?
I'm
All
here.
right, well, let's proceed, because I did put the recording on, so hopefully everything is in place, but I will put it on my phone as well, just in case. So, Chanowk, would you just take it from here? Thank you.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say peace to everybody. Thank you for joining the question and answer session. I'm assuming that you're joining the question and answer session because of the video that I posted, or a PowerPoint presentation that I posted. So really, I guess I just want to open it up for question and answer. I think we have about 30 minutes, so we don't have a whole bunch of time. That time's going to go pretty fast. So let's just go ahead and get started. This is my first time ever using Zoom, so just bear with me as I try to learn the controls and different things. I'm broadcasting live from Sacramento, California in our office, and we're ready to go. Let's do it.
Okay, well, some of us may not have had opportunity to see your video. Could you just give us a brief summary of what it's about? And,
okay.
And tell us about who you are, your background, and your visions for what you're doing with your project.
Okay. So just to give you a little background about myself, I kind of fell into this over a period of time. I have no background in agriculture other than the ancestors. My parents weren't doing it. My grandparents weren't doing it. But now, since then, I found out that my great grandfather was a farmer in Texas. So with not much experience, two things happened. The first thing that happened was in 1986, and then subsequently in 1989, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. She's went on to have 2 more breast cancer surgeries since then. That makes 4 for her. She's still with us. My dad in 2002 had his kidney removed from cancer. So with both of my parents having that type of cancer, the doctors always warned me, hey, you're probably going to have it. It's hereditary. And during that time, I had a friend of mine who had multiple sclerosis. And after reading African Holistic Health, he got off the medicines, started eating a vegetarian diet. And within 18 months, he was walking around. And when I say multiple sclerosis, I mean he was debilitated. He was wearing the glasses. He was in a wheelchair. And he went from that to walking and talking just like one of us within about 18 months of doing those things. So I saw the power of nature when it comes to healing. So I wanted to change my destiny, and I said, you know what, I'm going to have to change my eating habits, because they say that it's hereditary to get cancer. I think that the eating habits are hereditary. So I went ahead and did that. And then I realized that it was very expensive to eat healthy, especially if you're not producing your own food. Of course, we all are aware of the problems that surround Martin Luther King Jr. boulevards, probably from Sacramento all the way over to New York. But at that time, I did not know that those things are directly related to our eating habits. And even today, if you were to take a map of your city or my city, Chicago, anywhere, and to draw an outline where the people of color live, and then draw an outline where the high crime areas are, as well as draw an outline where the food deserts are, and then draw an outline of where the places where they have school closings, you'll find that those places are the same places. And of course, since we're not the people in most cases that are designing cities, then we have to understand that the conditions that we find ourselves in are designed to be that way. So anyways, needless to say, I started eating healthier. Plant-based diet was real expensive. And then around 2007, the economy crashed. I was doing quite well, to be honest. I was in the computer field. So, and I still was unable to put healthy food, fruits and vegetables on the family's table. And then I realized that food insecurity was not something that just applied to quote unquote poor people. I realized that, of course, it doesn't matter if you're eating at the corner store or you're eating at your new fancy Bel Air or whatever kind of new store that you have. If you're eating conventionally raised fruits and vegetables, nuts, whatever, it's laden with pesticides. So I wanted to do something about that. First for my family, and then I wanted to do something in the community. I've always, wanted to be somebody who was able to take some kind of solution into our community because it's our responsibility to do so. Once we go out, huh?
So anyway, sorry.
Oh, no problem. And so, just doing those things, I was like, okay. But there's no absence of people with things that they want to put in our community as answers. But in many cases, those solutions have not been tested. And it's hard to get people to do something that you haven't done yourself and been successful at doing. So from 2007 to about 2011, I went through the process of teaching myself how to grow food. And it changed my life because not only was I growing food, but I was growing myself and then ultimately growing or planting the seeds to growing a community because they all pretty much start the same way. And so in 2011, the Yisrael Family Urban Farm, we started as a business as a way to take the benefits and the ideals and the things that and the benefits that we've experienced as a family to the community and to show what nature was all about. And that's what we did. And so we started transforming the hood for good. And right there, I'm going to go ahead and stop it. And then, I guess, before I stop it, I'll say, so now that transforming the hood for good for us, we do that in about 2 or 3 different ways. One way is all aspects of teaching people how to grow their own food. At the same time, we also teach people what to do after the food is grown. If you're sitting around with about, 20 or 30 pounds of cucumbers, you got pickles. But, you got to go through the pickling process. You got about 20 pounds of cherries. You can make jam out of those, but you got to go through the process. So we're also reclaiming, or if you think about Sankofa, we're reclaiming those skills that subsisted, that we survived on through the first Great Depression and even before that. And then last but not least, we have a very strong focus on the youth. So we have a youth mentorship program called Project Good, which means growing our own destiny. And we teach young people the exact same things that I talked about, how to grow food, how to grow themselves, and how to grow the community. So with that, I'll go ahead and stop. And if anybody has questions, we can go from there.
Okay. I'm not sure if anyone available to ask questions. Let's see if Elijah, because I've been booted out and I'm trying to get back in. I'm still on the phone. So I usually open up the mic for everyone. So I'm not sure if anybody can come in and ask a question. Is there anybody there who has a thought I heard someone?
Yeah, it looks like everybody's muted.
Okay. So why don't you just give us a little bit more information?
This is Kwaku in Longo.
Yes, sir.
And I have a question. You mentioned that you took your project and you started introducing it to the youth.
Yes.
And could you give a little short, how you work that in with with the youth? Were they just people that you already had in your community, or did you bring more people in? And what were some of your challenges as far as getting that youth program started?
Well, the challenge is I'll start with the challenge first, and then I'll talk about how we talk about it. First, the main challenge is always going to be the oppression and slavery, oppression, slavery, and all of those other things, white supremacy, racism, that's connected with the fact of producing your own food. Many of the young people, when you get out there and talk about, hey, let's go and dig up something in the soil or work in the field or whatever, they're going to tell you, hey, that's what slaves did. Even going as far as the Hispanic children that I work with or that have been interested in agriculture, they went back to their parents and said, hey, I want to learn about agriculture. And their parents told them, you better stay away from that. Our grandparents did that. Our grandparents did that. So that's the challenge. The second challenge is that in public school, first of all, we're a spiritual people. We believe in spirit. We believe in rhythm, music, all of those right brain activities. And that's how we learn, through those things. And because the way that agriculture, and not just agriculture, but the sciences in general, they're presented to our young people in a totally disconnected, unspiritual, and totally mechanical way, which just doesn't jive with the way that our DNA and nature is made up. So what I've done when I talk to the young people, I don't deal with agriculture as it relates to the United States. Because, it's funny that, we're in the United States and there's really no true understanding of agriculture from it being a culture. There's an understanding of agriculture as it being a capitalistic economic equation, such as a farm, you grow food and you sell it to people. So I start with Africa. I start with, Ethiopia, even though they're the same place, of course, but I'm saying I start with Ethiopia and then we go back up into Egypt. And so I follow agriculture from the beginning of time, even down into South America, and then show them that even though we're talking about making raised beds and we're talking about all these different implements and how to do fruit trees and all of these things, that it was people that looked like you and I that were the people who originated these things. So when you read about agriculture, and I talk about this in my presentation heavily, you're not like, for example, permaculture or biodynamic or biointensive or quote unquote organic. All of those is new names for old things that we were doing before Europeans found us, met us, oppressed us, whatever we say. So once I can get them out of the mindset that this is only an activity that we had contact with as it relates to slavery and those types of things, and start to bring the spirituality back into it, start to bring the idea of, in order to be a successful farmer, you have to have a balance between masculine and feminine, because you may have to be masculine when you're tilling the soil or cultivating the soil. But then when it comes down to putting the plants into the ground or water or transplanting a plant, you then have to switch into a totally different mode and use both sides of your brain. And we really start to get into those things. I have music playing as we're talking about these things. We go through the creation myths of Kemet, whether it's, Hermopolis or Heliopolis, or we talk about even the first chapter of Genesis, or even different types of religious philosophies, the indigenous philosophies. And as soon as the earth was created, then people were created to do what? Take care of it. And so that's where our value and our worth has always been, is in taking care of the earth and being the stewards of the earth. So once I can get them out of that mindset and kind of leap over slavery and go all the way back home, then I can capture their imagination. And then from there, I can kind of bring them forward to understand, to see that most of what's being done is imitations of us.
Okay, are there any other questions?
No, thank you for that answer. That answered the question well.
Yes, sir.
Peace, Baba. This is Elisha from Chicago. Really, really, really excited to have you on this evening, and I appreciate you taking the time and really, really thoroughly enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you.
It's a great kind of approach and care that you take to the subject. I think you all are doing great work out there on the West Coast, and you all are some of the originators of a lot of the guerrilla gardening work that folks are doing around the country, and taking the lots over, et cetera. So
yes, sir.
We appreciate that work that you all are doing, and I definitely appreciate the kinetic piece. It's extremely important. My question is around the kind of cooperative economics and moving into co-op creation. Okay. Moving your work into kind of CSAs. I saw some of the and markets, and also the policy work that you all have been able to do. And so I wondered if you could kind of talk about those two pieces, how the work has allowed you to go from the self to the collective to the, you know, the institutional and the political, but also the cooperative development or the market development or the CSA development work that has allowed you all to continue to move things forward as well.
Okay. So that's a compound complex question. So I didn't write it all down. So I'm gonna start with you talked about cooperative economics. So I'm gonna just touch on that just real quick, and then I may ask you again what the other pieces are. So the first part is, do we have cooperative economic models? Yes. We actually have a food buying club here in Sacramento, and I just didn't have enough time to update my slides to talk about that. But we have another organization that we've started. Actually, it's an LLC called Sanco Distributions. And Sanco is a takeoff of the word Sankofa. Our logo is an actual Sankofa bird. And so what the idea is that we're starting not only food co-ops as it relates to CSAs and buying, fresh produce and what have you, but also being able to get into a position to start our own grocery store. So for example, in Sacramento, we have a Sacramento Natural Foods Co-op. That's one of the main, it's like 6-7 minutes away from my house, but it seems like almost, on the other side of the world from going from our neighborhood to there. But they started in 1976 as a food buying club. So what they wanted is, it was a group of Europeans, and they wanted to get organic produce, and there was nowhere in Sacramento to get it. So what they did is they got a group of families together, and they said, okay, well, if we call up, for example, XYZ organic company, and we say, well, we need, a trailer full of this. Can you deliver it to us? They found that they were favorable to do that as long as they gave them the money. So over a period of time, they had people that they used to order these bulk orders, and they used to distribute it to their members. But then over a period of time, they found out that not only were they saving money, but then other people wanted to come and get produce from them or other products, organically made products. So over a period of time, they were able to set up a brick and mortar store, and then now it's been going on since 1976. So in looking at that model here in Sacramento, we've actually started a food buying club where you can get produce from us, some of our other products, because we also make our own soap. We make jellies and jams. In California, they have what's called the Home Cottage Act, where certain things like jellies, jams, teas, and other things that you can do, you can make those products at home in your kitchen and sell them to the community or sell them to other stores, wholesale, without having to go through all of the licensing that's usually necessary. So in addition, and when we put the urban ag ordinance together, we made sure that in addition to being able to sell produce at the farm stand, you're also able to sell these home cottage products too as well. So we're able to diversify our offerings. So now we can have produce as well as jam, as well as soap, as well as teas, as well as cut medicinal herbs. And it allows us to be able to give a better offering to the people that want to buy things from us. So those are a couple of ways that we're dealing with the collective economic piece. Of course, when you buy stuff together, just the idea that you can get 5 or 6 families, our families together, and be able to purchase produce is, something that's wonderful, even if we weren't saving money. But at the same time, because we're doing it in bulk, everybody sees that, wow, if I'm buying a pound of beans, you're buying a pound of beans, another family's buying a pound of beans, and somebody else is buying a pound of beans, we're paying somebody to split those beans up. Why don't we just buy a 50-pound bag from the producer, and then we'll split them up ourselves, and we can put that money back into our organization or back into our pockets as savings, and then we can free up other income to support other community development projects. So that's the collective economic piece. Can you talk about the next one? I think it was it policy?
Yes, and I really appreciate that, Baba, because we're looking for, that's a great way to do it. And yes, the policy. You mentioned the agricultural ag ordinance. I just want to make sure I was really not so much the process, but what it did, what it allowed you all to do, and what some of the challenges were in that process.
Okay, so what it allowed us to do is, So where we live in Sacramento, there's city and there's county, and they're separate entities. So what it allowed you to do in the city and in the county, which previously you couldn't do, is you can grow produce, front yard, backyard, and then you can set up a farm stand right in your front yard and be able to sell the produce. Excuse me. You can be able to sell the produce that you produce. And you don't have to go through, like, you know, in many cases, it was a zoning change. So you don't have to go through like a temporary use permit, which in many cases is $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. You may have to, you got to get a small business use license, which is about $30 or so. And it's not a temporary use permit. I forgot exactly what kind of permit it is, but we made sure that it was waived for the first year. So anybody that wants to do that, you can go ahead and waive it. We also made it legal to be able to have chickens, to sell the eggs. You can have, there's ordinances around the bees. We have chickens and we have bees on our farm. And so, you know, it really just opens the door to an activity that is so natural to us to become an economic engine that we can use, as opposed to something that, you know, of course, barter is good and trading back and forth is good and those things are good. But at the same time, I think that the model that we need to start employing is where we as a community create products as a community, and then we trade those products amongst ourselves, but then we as a community have products that we can then offer to all of the other cultures and communities around. And then that's the way that we fund our community development, i.e. the same way that no matter where you go in the United States, you're going to find a Chinese restaurant. And that Chinese restaurant is going to, for the most part, have Chinese people working there. And what happens when you put that dollar into that Chinese restaurant, that goes back into the Chinese community and bounces around like 15 or 20 times. And then that's how they fund their community development. So, you know, they're like, if we go to a place and there's no Chinese people here, we're setting up a Chinese restaurant, and we're using our culture as we're introducing it to people as a way to create income and keep us afloat.
Absolutely, Bob. Appreciate it. Excellent.
Yes, sir. Did I answer all your questions?
Yes, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. It's definitely important to create those cycles and I love the fact that you all were able to get the zoning changed. Here in Chicago, that's something that aldermen and alderwomen do, and the political landscape is completely different. And yes. So, you know, it's great to hear. And I think it just, folks hearing that, it gives them ideas as to what's possible with some of the policy. If you're going to address policy, some folks don't want to touch policy, but if you are, what things are possible within that change?
Yeah, and one thing I want to add is that with the Sacramento Urban Ag Coalition that we started, so here's some of the things that we had in this coalition that made us, first we had a lawyer, somebody that was, well, he was going to law school at the time. He was a European, but you know, he was determined to be an ally. And so it got to a point where we couldn't stop him. So if you're going to offer us free law service, then we'll take it. So we had somebody that was skilled in law. We also had somebody such as myself and a couple of other farmers. So as the ordinance was being developed, we made sure that there was farmer input. So a lot of times in policy, especially as it comes to food, if we don't know what's going on and we're not at the table, then we can't put our input in. So by the time the ordinances are rolled out, then it's not something that we can then use. So then we have to say, yeah, we got an ordinance, but it doesn't work. So we need to go back and change this. And last but not least, we made it very easy for them to say yes to us. Why? Because we presented them with our own draft ordinance. We didn't say, oh, we need an ordinance for food and we want you to make it up for us. No, we went around and looked at Chicago, we looked at Detroit, we looked at San Francisco, we even looked at Cleveland and some of the things that they were doing there, New York, and we drafted our own ordinance, took our time to do that, so that when it was time to sit down with them, we're like, all the work is already done. Take a look at this, get back to us. And I think that that was a great way to present it to them, because it shows that we're invested and involved in this process, which, you know, local policy is a way that you can make some difference. Of course, it's not going to be the promised land, but it is a way to be able to affect something that affects us on a day-to-day basis.
Wow, that was a good move. A lot of us don't go to these city council meetings. We don't know what's going on. And unless we find out what they projecting for the next 5 or 10 years,
Yep.
so like the idea of setting up on ordinances, especially with the gentrification that's going on across the country, because these gentrifiers come into the community and they decide to change the game, whereby you can't have your drumming early in the morning all day.
Right.
You can't have a party past, you can't play any music past 11 o'clock, because when
Right.
they move in, they're going to shut down at 10 o'clock, and then sometimes
Right.
11. So we can set
Right.
up and do our own ordinances so we can beat back, because they come in here and set up ordinance and, you know, we're going to control the sound, the noise level. And
Right.
it's only going to be, so yeah, I commend you and your community for putting that together, that ordinance. I think others can learn from that.
Yes, and to talk about just to add on to what you were saying about the drumming, you want to go under religion, and you know I know we don't necessarily want to deal with that word, but when you start to do ordinances as it relates to sound, in many ordinances, if you dig down, even in the Constitution, there's certain things that protect religious music that can be done at any time. So, you know, just being able to, you know, use some of the language to say, no, we're practicing our religion. We're not just drumming just for the heck of it, just so we can hear some sound. Then, you know, that's a way that you have to approach some of those things.
Right, yeah, the language you use is very key, and you can be very helpful to other communities in terms of what language needs to be used in order to get these ordinances passed through the city council. Of course, you got to get the right people on the city council as well.
Right.
I mean, you got to learn to communicate with them before you even take it to a vote, you know.
Absolutely. One of the things that we do, and this is just like textbook right out of Marcus Garvey in the book, I think Let My Message to the People, I think it's the little small blue and white book. He said, whatever city that you're in, the people who are in the government need to know who you are. They need to know who you are. They need to know what you do. So our mailing list has every city council person and their chief of staff. It has every county supervisor and their chief of staff. Anybody in the government that has anything to do with anything that we may want to do. Anytime that we have an event, they're always on the mailing list so that they know who we are. So when it's time to sit in front of them and do something, it's not like we're just coming out of nowhere. Everybody knows what we do, and they know that we're doing good things in the community. And in many county supervisors or city council people, they have discretionary funds that they can give somebody $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 for things to get done in the community. And of course, you know, there's always the conversation of, do we take the money? Do we not take the money? But in many cases, it's discretionary funds. It's not like a grant to where there's all these deliverables. So that's just another thing that we found out as we started to kind of scratch the surface of what's going on in the local government that has been helpful for us.
Right, I'm from California also, from Nairobi, California.
Okay.
Being that Nairobi was only 2.5 miles square, it was very easy for us to know who everybody was. And
Absolutely.
get things passed in that small community.
Yes, ma'am.
I think if anyone else have a question, you just can take your mic and speak forward. I'll just start speaking because
yes, this is Kwaku Longo again.
Yeah, somebody's speaking. Go ahead.
Yes,
Yes, I hear you.
Longo. You know, your program sounds really well. But one of the things I've noticed.
I lost you, brother.
Okay, I got cut off for a minute. Can you hear me now?
No problem. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, is that when you start working, trying to get cooperation within the group, I found that there's an issue of trust when
Yes.
you're trying to initiate something.
Yes, sir.
How did you deal with that?
Well,
Way that you
that's So, and this is, I'm telling you what it is. Of course, we know how we want things to be, but I'll just tell you up front that it wasn't until we got on the cover of white magazines in our city that our people started to come out in droves. When I first started the organization, I went to the community. I'm born and raised in my city here, Sacramento. So I know people and people know who I am. And, as I've grown up in the city. But at the same time, when I first started to talk about agriculture, you have to understand, for many people, most people just look at it as it's work. And not only is it work, but you're working out in the hot sun, et cetera, et cetera. So I didn't get really a whole bunch of community support to start. And, that I can conjecture on why that was. But once we actually started to get, we passed the ordinance. My wife was on one of a local magazine for her work, what she does as far as herbs and as far as doing simple, easy, healthy recipes. I think it goes out to 50, 60,000 people. She was on the top. She was on the cover of that magazine. I was on the cover of a magazine that got about 300,000. It's a 300,000 circulation. And so once those things started to happen, then that's when people were like, oh, you guys must be serious and for real. And so to speak to what you said specifically about trust is built through consistency and longevity. So when we first started, it was like, oh, okay, we've seen people do this before. In fact, even before me, there were other people that were doing urban farming, other Black people that were doing urban farming that started it. 6 months later, they fell off and didn't do it, moved out of town. So I think what really has to happen is trust is built through observable results over a period of time. So by the time we were 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years into this, and we're still doing the same thing, talking about the same message, doing the same events, because of course, when you're growing food, the cycle continues every single year. You know what to do in fall, you know what to do in winter, you know what to do in spring, you know what to do in summer. And so as people started to observe that we were doing those things over and over and over again, and it was working. I was working when we first started. My wife was working. I stopped working so I could focus on the farm. And then as the farm started to grow, and we started to raise our profile, then she was able to leave her job in corporate America. And now this is what we both do full time. So it's around food. As people started to see that there are tangible results, especially being able to leave a 9-to-5 job and support yourself doing this, then that's where people started to say, you know what? I think this is something that we need to start paying attention to. I think those were some of the things.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you. Good answer. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Right. Anyone else would like to ask a question? Just unmute yourself and come right on. Come right in. Yeah, I have some questions. How
Sure.
do you connect with some of the other communities that are doing something similar to you? Is there any kind of collaboration that may go on?
When you say communities, like local, national, regional?
I guess more local. I know in San Francisco there used to be an organization called what was it called? Better Food, to that extent. I think they were in Oakland, California.
So to answer your question, well, of course, when you start talking about agriculture and farming, it's much different than everything else because of the fact that, you're actually out working in the field all the time. And so, just changing my screen here. And so because you're doing those things, sometimes it's hard to be able to connect with some of the other people that are out there. But I know people in Oakland, they know what we do. We're actually, to even talk about policy a little bit more, we're actually in the process of advancing a Farmer Equity Act in California from the state legislature to put language into the California Department of Food and Agriculture that empowers the director of the CDFA in order to create a position or create a space where farmers of color, specifically farmers of color, not disadvantaged farmers, because, you know, a lot of times when that happens, then what happens is the white women end up getting all the money and the resources, but actually farmers of color, to be able to make it that we can get resources and things that we haven't had access to, similar to what's going on in the federal scope. So the reason why I said that is to say that, you know, it's one of those things of strategy. I mean, it's just really strategic, the way that where you have to place your, you know, your energies and your time. But then at the same time, you're going to have to get out and be very social to talk to people. You're going to have to talk to all different types of people all the time. And I think that that's one of the things that, you know, we've excelled at, is networking. Because, I mean, you know, I was in for example, I'll give you an example. I was in Home Depot buying something, and I posted a video about this on my Facebook page. It was so funny. So I'm in Home Depot getting something, I forgot what I was getting, but I was getting something. And this brother walks up behind me, like, you know, just walks up behind me. So I turned to him to see what's going on. He's like, man, my wife came to one of your cooking classes. You're on my Facebook page, but I've never met you. And I just want to let you know that I've been eating good for the last few weeks. So it's really being able to really get your name out there and really go on and start networking and just sharing. I mean, you know, it's just really sharing and getting people aware of what's going on out there. And people are very, very receptive to that. I don't know if that answered your question, but if it didn't, please wheel me back in.
Yes, it did. And I think I remember the organization was called Mo Better Foods.
Right. That's David Roach.
Yeah, David Roach. I know his brother here, his brother lives in Oregon. But
yeah,
I was wondering if he's still functioning.
I've talked to him. He is still active. What I've been looking at nowadays, and, you know, there's a organization called the National Black Food and Justice Alliance. If anybody's heard of that, it's blackfoodjustice.org. And so what they're doing is they're in the process of putting together a national platform based on Black food sovereignty, self-determining food economies, and land. You know, land ownership, land control, and what have you. And so really trying to figure out how we can get a national organization together where we can start to work on specific platform pieces is really something that I've been looking at. Because you're right, even though Oakland is an hour away, I rarely get to go up there because I'm always on the farm. So we've connected with them. We've connected with Malik Yakini and the Detroit Black Food Security Network over there in Detroit.
I know Malik also.
Yes.
He used to be administrator of the African Center School, and I was too at the same time.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Conferences in Georgia, but he's doing some great work as well.
Yeah. So, you know, if not visiting, but we're, you know, always in contact. And so I've, like, for example, there's organizations that I've been boards on, that I've been able to, you know, have them to bring speakers on, because, you know, we have to always be in a position. And I know sometimes we kind of isolate ourselves and say, oh, we're only going to deal with ourselves and do those types of things, which of course there's a place for that. But then at the same time, there's been organizations that I've been a board member on, which are, you know, predominantly European or other people of color organizations, where I've been able to pull in people like Malik or pull in other speakers to be able to have them speak to the audiences that, you know, they need to talk to be able to push this message forward. Because there are some people that just aren't aware. And, you know,
Yes.
So anyway, so that's some of the things that we do as far as outreach to other communities and other people doing similar work that we're doing.
Okay, Absolutely. We got about 4 more minutes. So are there any other outstanding questions someone would like to ask? If you can't,
I had a question, and appreciate you again, Barbara Chanowk. This is great. You kind of talked a little bit about it. I'm also part of the National Black Food Justice Alliance as well. Mm-hmm. So it's great that I'm glad that you're a part of that. What are some of the things that you are looking forward to So some of the things that you want to accomplish that you have yet to accomplish, that is on your radar, that's on the horizon, in terms of some of the work that you're looking at doing?
I think the main thing that I'm really trying to work at now, especially with what we've accomplished up to this point, is really creating spaces where we, and I mean Black people, can have our own protected spaces where we can actually sit down and really talk about what we need to do to move forward, i.e. the revolution will not be televised. I think that that's something that we really need to start working on because you know, and I'm sure we've all seen it, that when we have a meeting about, let's say, a subject like Black food sovereignty, and it ends up getting opened up to everybody, then it's not the same type of meeting as if it's just us there. And we know, and we have that, you know, protected space where we can really talk about what we need to talk about. So I think that that's something that's got bugs flying in my face. So I think that that's something that we really need to start working on, is really creating those spaces for ourselves to have the, you know, the ability to have those real candid conversations, to talk about what it's going to take to get not just access to fresh and healthy foods, and not even really food justice, but really starting to move towards food sovereignty and, you know, some of the things that the National Black Food and Justice Organization is really talking about. It's going to require that we solve those problems. Those are problems that other people can't solve for us.
Absolutely. I absolutely appreciate it.
That in the chat, the name of that organization.
Sure will. Will do.
Say that one more time.
I just asked them to put that organization on the chat so people can pick it up.
Okay, I can do that now. Let me just see how I can chat.
There we go. Elijah already got it down.
Okay, cool. It's all good.
Got the website down too.
Yep.
Wonderful. Okay, let's see. We got one more minute. Any other burning questions before I don't see the other presenter yet, so we can probably take one more burning question before we move forward.
I got a question for everybody. How does the sound sound, and how does the picture look?
Picture looks great. The sound was perfect.
Okay, good. Because I'm in the process. I'm trying to start doing some webinars and things like that. And this is like the first time I've ever used my little DSLR camera as a webcam and my little external mic, because I want to start doing webinars. That's another thing that we can start talking about too, is, you know, as far as monetizing this idea, because there's a lot of people in this movement that are passionate, but in many cases, people are not, you know, we have to start applying business standards. And I think that in the business world, I think it's something that's called the triple bottom line, which is people, planet, and profit, where, you know, we're starting to look at our effects to the people, our community, the planet, and then being able to profit too as well. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And I don't think that it's something that's outside of the realm of, you know, righteousness or justice for us to be able to do that, considering that, you know, this is something that's so natural to us, and nobody can do anything the way that we do anything.
Exactly. And, you know, next year we're going to have offline and online summits simultaneously.
Got you.
And so here's people like yourself to come here to Atlanta. This will be the first one. I think the next year it may go to, I know it's going to go to Ghana at some point. I think that's 2000. Go to Ghana because we have a sustainable community there. They were on the presentation from last year, and you can still go and check out the presentation for 2016 because they're all still very, very relevant.
Right.
So we would certainly like to invite those of us who are on these presentations here in this summit to come out for our offline, I'm calling it offline, but we'll probably call it a conference of some sort, to come together to talk about how we move forward with the knowledge that we have, that we've gained just by doing this summit, connecting the dots with, or doing the same thing, and connect the dots with people who are looking into sustainable living and just don't know how, just don't know what to do and how to go about doing it. And of course, overall, have a mindset for sustainability, and white folks, sustainability means depleting our population. They have a totally different meaning for sustainability than what we have.
Absolutely.
Other
One thing I just wanted to say is another way, and you know, I was talking earlier about me going to Italy twice. There's an organization called Slow Food. Some people have heard of it. I was a delegate 2 years in a row for We Feed the Planet, which is basically, in a nutshell, 1,400 people from all over the world, ages 18 to 30. I was able to blend in, even though I'm a little bit older than that. But you know, we don't crack anyway, so I was able to blend in. And over 4 days to talk about the state of food in the world. And so there, I was able to talk to farmers from Ethiopia, South America, and many indigenous farmers, and able to get a bird's eye view of what they look at urban agriculture as being, and what we look at urban agriculture as here in the States. And I think that was one of the most eye-opening experiences. So yes, we do need to have different summits in different places to be able to talk to people, to be able to see what we can bring back, and then also what we can share with them.
exactly. Okay, we're gonna close down.
Sure.
Just need the contact information. Bobby, can you add your contact information in the chat as well? Email, phone, website.
Say that one more time. I apologize.
I was just saying if you could add your contact information in the chat as well, your email,
Okay, sure,
phone,
no
and
problem. I can do that. I'll do that right
email,
now.
phone, and website.
Okay, it's I'll put my email address here. Put our website, and then I'll also put our Facebook page, just so that people can get that, because we're pretty active on that too as well. So there you go, and that's a way to get in touch with me. For those people, you can also add me on Facebook if you just search. Search me on Facebook. You can find me there and add me. I'm always posting videos of harvests, and I'm always trying to make the connection between the material and the spiritual. So in addition to talking about, you know, for example, and I guess there was somebody that said something earlier about talking to the young people. You know, I'm always using agriculture to illustrate things. So we were talking about trees, and they were like, man, how long does it take for a tree to get fruit on it? I said, you might get fruit on the tree the first day, or the first 2 years. But the point is not do you get fruit, but are the branches developed well enough to be able to hold the fruit? Because if they're not, then the tree breaks, and then you just set yourself back, you know, a certain amount of years. And that transitioned into a lesson on the gifts that these young people have, and how sometimes when we have gifts, sometimes we tend to move too fast with the gifts. And then the success comes, as we've seen with many of our stars, the success comes, we don't know how to handle it. And then there's a crash and burn process that happens. So I'm always trying to make that connection.
Okay, well, we have all the information we need to
Sure.
Contact you if we need to.
Yep.
And we hope to invite you to come back next year, maybe
Yep.
offline to Atlanta to talk about what you're doing there.
Yes.
We much appreciate for your work, and blessings to you, and hope that this work continues. And I know it will, because it's going to have to be sustained.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to close down, and I'm going to go and see if we can find our other presenter. He was en route to Atlanta and was supposed to be back around this time. So we're going to check him out and ask patience for everyone else. This will be, I believe, our last presentation, Kwabena Boateng, the Foundation of Sustainability. So ask you to hold on for a few more minutes, and we will be right back. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for participating, okay?
Yes, thank you, Bubbles.
Yeah, did you get my text? Yeah, I'm gonna have to shut down and come back on because I accidentally turned off the strip and turned off the computer. And the only thing I had going was I was still on the phone. But when I came back in, I saw I was on there twice. And I haven't been able to figure out how to, I guess Chanowk was the host for that particular, oh, let me turn off the recorder. I don't know how to turn the recorder off. It's still on, I believe. But because I'm not the host, I can't turn it off. It just went to Kefra. Okay, while you're doing that, I'm going to have to shut everything down and start and get back on. Okay? All right. That's what I thought. But I think it dropped when everything was shut down.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Doing all right, Raina. Good evening to you. Kwabna here.
Oh, Kwabena is here. Okay, Kwabena, I'm glad that you're here. I'm going to have to give us a couple of minutes because my system went down. I have to bring it back up again.
Okay.
Glad you're here on time. And there's people in the room, several people here in our presentation room, just waiting to hear from you. So just give me a second. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Oh, you
Yes.
can't hear? Oh, okay. Quabna, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, we want to,
Longos are here also.
oh, wonderful. Let me,